So, salam alaikum, PP with you. How are you, Neymat?
Walaikum salam, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm good. So, thank you so much for being my podcast guest.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, tell me more about you.
Okay, well, there's not that much that's interesting about me, really. The main interesting thing about me is that I write. I've written two books so far, and I have a blog that I try to update monthly at least. And yeah, I'm a huge believer in fiction as a tool, in terms of writing, just because I started reading and writing when I was really, really young. And I think that that's impacted my entire future from then to now. I started when I was 5, I believe. And just the hobbies that I picked up, the way that I did in school, and the way that speak to other people, the way that I empathize and understand other people, I think that's all been formed by, reading and writing. And so I just think that it's incredibly, incredibly powerful, and we should nurture that.
Okay. So, what really inspired you to start writing?
Um, okay, so the books that I've been writing for a long time, I never actually finished any kind of writing piece until about 2 years ago. That's the first time that I wrote a novella and actually finished it. And that was the first time that I actually tried using characters who were like me, Muslim people who were dealing with the same kinds of situations that I was, who were in a setting that was, in South Africa, so people who I almost identified with. And I I found it really, really powerful to have characters who like me and to be so interested in them and connected to them. And I think that that just has been my motivator since then, to have characters who are very, very much like me, and instead of being very, very different and other.
So, you have written and published a book, is that right?
Yes, I've published two. Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah. So, tell me more about those.
Okay, so the first one is called Chains of Fear, and it's a romantic drama it's almost, I would say, a little bit of a rewriting of stereotypes of the traditional mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. And there's a huge culture in South Africa of marrying quite young and having that kind of family-driven life. And I just wanted to sort of change up that narrative a little bit. And so I wrote Chains of Fear, which is a very cute, charming love story, if I first say so myself. And it's also about the struggles that you can face, at the beginning of a marriage and trying to integrate into a new family. And then I wrote The Art of Mutual Destruction, which was my second book, about 6 months after that. And that one is a bit more drama filled. It's about characters who think that they're beyond redemption, and about this mafia family, or these two mafia families who are fighting against one another, and then those characters. And I found it very, very interesting to write because you don't really see from the viewpoint of murderers and uh, thugs and thieves and things like that, and those kinds of redemption stories when you're reading Islamic fiction. So I just really, really wanted to write about that, and it's really about that arc of redemption for those characters.
Okay. Very nice. So, let's see. You are, I don't know if people know much about the different cities in South Africa. So, can you talk more about South Africa? Shine a good light on South Africa.
Okay, well, South Africa is, well, the parts of South Africa that I'm in are very, very city and metropolitan, but I've been to both rural and urban South Africa. And I think that one thing that people don't really realize is that there's such a huge divide in the country. I mean, there are statistics about how a very large number of the population are below the poverty line and things like that. But it doesn't really seem to sink in that while there are the stereotypical rural there are cows everywhere and that kind of thing. There are those kinds of farmlands in South Africa. There are also these huge cities where it's just as metropolitan as something you would see in the Western world in terms of going to, New York, London, or somewhere like that. And South Africa is really, it's almost a country full of contradictions because of that, because we've got this huge divide, and we're such a young country in terms of independence, because apartheid has only ended less than 25 years ago. And so we're a very young country with a lot of really passionate people, and we're just trying to recover from the past at the moment.
Okay. So where else have you gotten to travel to?
So I traveled when I was really, really young, and I don't remember where I traveled to in terms of making actual memories. All I know is what I got from my family, that we went to Egypt and we went to Mozambique, and then we also went for Umrah, and I got to experience Makkah and Medina. But I remember none of that. The only traveling that I really remember and have good memories of is traveling within South Africa. So I've been to the rural parts of South Africa and Port Elizabeth, because I studied at a town called Grahamstown. And it's a really, really little town over there, because there's a university, and that's basically the entire urban aspect of that town, and the rest of it is very, very farmland. So it was really, really interesting to go to. And then I've been to Cape Town and Johannesburg, and I loved Cape Town so much. It's so beautiful there, and it's really, really lovely to see all the history that's there, because Robben Island is in Cape Town. In Cape Town is over there in the Western Cape, and that's where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, and you get to see all of that lovely history. It's been a while since I've been back there, but it's always so fascinating to me to be able to be so close to history.
Yeah, I think when I went in 2016, they were, well, I didn't get to take the ferry itself to Robben Island, but I was right there at the port, and they were just, they're rebuilding it, renovating it, expanding it, however, construction. Yeah, even then in 2016. So what have you learned from the writing process?
I think from going from a reader to a writer, and a very passionate reader at that, I just noticed by being a writer that there's a lot that doesn't go into the final version of a book. There's a lot that about the characters and about the story that you can't really tell because it doesn't fit in. But that doesn't mean that it's not there. And there's all of this lovely backstory and all of this little nuance in the interactions that you have with your characters, and it might not come across to a reader, and that might be why a reader still has questions at the end of the day. But it's not because the story hasn't been fully formed or that there's a plot hole. It's just because sometimes it doesn't fit to be able to tell the reader what's in your head. So that was really interesting for me to realize.
So what was the most difficult thing about just writing in general?
So my books are fairly emotional. There's an attempted rape scene in the one, there's attempted suicide, there's all those kinds of things. And those really emotionally charged scenes are incredibly difficult to write for me, because there's I almost get physically drained by writing them. I think that's the most difficult thing for me, to just start writing that and continue through to the ending in one sitting or a couple of sittings, rather than stop and lose the emotion.
Yes, yeah. Now, what would you say originally stopped you from releasing either one of your books?
So my first one, I didn't think that I was qualified, almost, because I was quite young at the time. It's been almost 2 years. I just turned 21, I think, or yeah. And I just thought that I wasn't there yet in terms of, progression. I thought that, okay, you're gonna write a book and then you're gonna publish it, but it's gonna be in 5 or 10 years, something like that. I didn't think that at the time the story was something that people would want to read. And thankfully that changed, and now it's there, and people do seem to like it. Alhamdulillah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to jump around a bit, but for those who are watching this YouTube video, they're probably asking, why do we only see her eyes? Do you want to tell us more about that?
Okay, so the niqab, which is what I'm wearing at the moment, is something that is not required of all Muslim women. So it's not like the hijab where you're required to wear it and things like that. That's why you see far less women having their face covered. And the niqab is just basically, I wouldn't even say recommended, but it's something that people can do, women can do in terms of expressing their faith. And for me, the reason that I choose to do it is because it's a very tangible expression of my faith. And it's a very clear sign that I am a Muslim woman who is choosing to observe this. And it's almost, for me, it's almost like any other recommended deed, which is part of the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the Prophet of Islam. So for me, it's that certain people choose to earn good deeds by giving extra charity or by, doing extra physical worship, and I choose to do this as a way of pleasing God.
Right. And so if there's anyone who wants to learn more about the religion Islam itself, I also share my experience in the previous podcast episode. So you can go to my website at nayyar.com and learn more about that. So what helps you day to day with your writing process? Because sometimes we do get writer's block.
Definitely. So writing process day to day, what I really like to do is indulge in different writing challenges. So there's the 10-word stories challenge that's very popular, or just using different writing prompt generators, things like that. It's just a way for me to keep that sense of creativity, because not always when you're writing a novel do you feel that sense of creativity. There is that initial spark for me, but 90% of writing a novel is not that spark of creativity. It's just chipping away at the initial idea that you had. And I really, really like to be able to keep that creativity and that excitement alive in different ways and in different, maybe even different stories, to make sure that I'm still excited about writing when I'm getting to my novel.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, what would be your advice for those who are wanting to release a book, publish a book, or even just get their writing out there somehow, somewhere, on some format?
Okay, so if you want to get your writing out there, then I'm assuming that you've got a novel, or you've got an idea at least. And the most important thing that I can say is feel confident enough to keep pitching. It's amazing if you've got the ability to get to a literary agent, pitch to them, and speak to them. And then also, there are so many circles and so many support groups that are out there. And I mean, you can find them via Facebook, you can find them in real life, in libraries and things like that. Just find a set of people who are doing the same sort of thing that you are, perhaps in the same genre, or perhaps pitching the same kind of, women of color stories or anything like that. And just get that confidence in your writing. And if you're shy about maybe showing it to literary agents or things like that, look in these circles for other people who are willing to give you good critiques and willing to give you advice in exchange for you doing the same for them. That'll really, really help build up your confidence. Even if you've gotten to a point where you're confident and you know that you've got the next big thing, these kinds of circles are really, really helpful, and they're gold mines for people who are a bit more experienced and are very, very willing and eager to mentor newer writers, because they were mentored in the same way when they were starting out. So definitely find a good circle and find a good network.
I love it. I love it. Now, where can we find your books and you on the web?
Okay, so I blog at theimperfectmuslimah.com, so you can find me there. And then my books are available on Amazon under Neymat Raboobee, so you can find them there as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I think you are wise beyond your years.
Thank you very much.
Age is nothing but a number, but even just listening to you and looking at you in the video version, people wouldn't even know your age.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
And I guess I could say Ramadan Mubarak.
Oh, Ramadan Mubarak to you too. I can't believe it's coming up so fast.
I know.
month.
and we're halfway through the middle of the year. But that's the thing now. Like as soon as the middle of the year approaches, we know Ramadan is coming, the holy month is coming.
I think for me, Ramadan is almost an escape from the rest of the year. It's so much more peaceful. There's this beautiful atmosphere in the air, and it's amazing.
And it's not even about like you don't even miss the food because you're so focused on spiritual food. So
Definitely.
yeah.
And I think, well, I don't know about you, where you are, but in South Africa, it's almost it's almost a relief for me to be able to just not focus on that kind of thing. There's a huge trend in South Africa to be very ostentatious about iftar parties and seri and things like that. And there are people who wake up just before before Fajr for the before dawn meal and cook at that time. Just start preparing a meal. Wake up an hour early, and that to me is a little bit insane. But yeah, I like the fact that the day isn't revolving around food for us because so often it does. You get up in the morning, okay, what's for breakfast, and then you go to work, and then your colleagues are talking about, okay, what's for lunch, and then it just takes up so much of your time, and you can do it. You can do so much more valuable things at that time.
Yeah, I mean here the days are longer, the temperature is higher, but
Oh
it's
yes.
all the same thing. I mean, of course nowadays I feel like technology may even help us out with all these we have like food delivery companies, um, which I drive for occasionally, but obviously won't be during the holy month because that's
Mhm.
work. But we have so many food delivery companies, and I just feel like it just makes it so much easier, for everyone. But I think at the same
Definitely.
time, sure, like, cooking in the morning just make things easier. And or even if there's a day where, I'm not fasting, for example, just still the authenticity of being able to make food and serve food and take it to the mosque or masjid. So,
Mm. Yeah, that's really lovely. I know there are a couple of people over here who just cook for the brothers who are at the mosque and, sitting in itikaf. So that's really, really lovely. And that's a really nice way to just, foster a sense of community in everyone. And there are even, I think, as far as I remember, there are going to be a couple of, just community iftar parties, which are very lovely.
yeah.
So it feels like Muslim people are just a lot more visible and ready to connect with one another during the month. So that's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason for ignorance to be blessed.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you again. All right. Assalamu alaikum.